How's it going? This is day 2 of Innistrad Crimson Vow spoiler releases. Now, if you didn't see day 1 of the spoiler release, we did over 20 new cards that you can see in my last video. This one is going to be 18 new cards with a new full art land. Let's go ahead and get started with card number 1. Card number 1 is Path of Peril. It is a 1 and 2 black sorcery, has cleave for 4 black and white. You may cast a spell for attack for its cleave cost. If you do, remove the words in square brackets. So, for 1 and double black, it is destroy all creatures with mana value 2 or less. If you pay 4 white black, it just says destroy all creatures because you remove the bracketed text. So 6 mana board clear, a little bit more overcosted, but destroy all creatures with mana value 2 or less for 3 mana is pretty powerful, especially when it doesn't do just tokens like the one we just got in the previous set. Moving on to the next card, Bruno Stormkirk. It's a Dimir, 3 mana 1/4 flying vampire cleric. When Bruno Stormkirk enters the battlefield, put up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card. If a creature card with mana value 6 or greater is revealed this way, transform Bruno Stormkirk. Maybe there's some kind of reanimator deck that you can play this in. Discard your high mana value creature, play this, put it back on top, and then transform it when you look at that card at the start of your upkeep. Let's read Crokeyz, Lord of the Deep. It is a legendary creature, Kraken horror with flying. It's a 3/5, and it's whenever Crokeyz, Lord of the Deep attacks, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of another target attacking creature. If that creature is a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent, create 2 of those tokens instead. Now, what do I think of this 3 mana 1/4 with flying? I guess with vampire or cleric synergies, if you're playing blue and black, it could be a good addition just for it being a 1/4 flyer. I would like it more if it had like 2 power. 3 power is probably too much, but if it was a 2/4, I would like it even more. But whether or not you can build this deck around the ability, I don't think it's gonna be very playable. It's one of those cards where it's like totally unplayable, or there's a deck built around it that makes it insane. So if you like doing things like this, it's definitely going to be a really fun card for sure. Moving on to Soulcode Tablet is a 1 and a blue artifact. It is an uncommon. Soulcode Tablet enters the battlefield with 3 omen counters. Whenever a creature card is put into your graveyard, it can even go from deck to graveyard. Remove 1 omen counter from Soulcode Tablet, then transform it if there are no omen counters on it. So basically, mill 3 creatures, transform it, and it turns into Code-Bound Geist. It is a spirit with flying, and it can only block creatures with flying. You can pay 3 and a blue
Charlie
to draw
Trotter
2 cards.
X300.
All right, thanks for the cheer. Thank you very much. You can only block creatures with flying, and you can pay 3 and a blue to draw 2 and then discard a card. This is pretty slow, but if you're playing a mill deck or maybe a graveyard base deck, maybe you are playing Bruno Stormkirk, and you want to fill up your graveyard to use that ability, and you also play Soulcode Tablet in your deck, to be able to flip this and to be able to draw 2 and discard 2 to go into that blue-black based reanimator game plan. Moving on to Witness the Future. It's a 3 mana sorcery. Choose target player and up to 4 target cards in their graveyard. That player shuffles those cards into their library, and then you look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 1 of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So not only could you get your opponent's cards out of their graveyard that they could potentially use out of the graveyard, like Memory Deluge or something, and then you get to look at the top 4 of your library and put 1 in the hand. So it's kind of like a cantripy type card. Kind of like it is a sorcerer, which makes it a little bit worse. But you can also use this in a control deck to have 1 more copy of Witness the Future in your graveyard, shuffle it back in, look for a card, and then keep looping the Witness the Futures over and over again until your opponent decks out. Now, if you're that type of control player, I have a special place in the dark depths of my mind for you, but it's a thing you can do. All right, moving on to Alchemist Gambit. This is the scary card here, so you're going to want to watch this and maybe cry with me. Alchemist Gambit is a 1 in red sorcery. Take an extra turn after this one. During that turn, damage can't be prevented. At the beginning of that turn's end step, you lose the game. Exile Alchemist Gambit. So yes, it's a 3 mana, take an extra turns. You do lose the game after the next end step, but it does give decks like Mono Red and things a chance to put you to 4 life or something, take that extra turn for 3 mana, and kill you. But that's not all. it does have cleave for 4 blue, blue, red. So 7 mana to use this card. And if you're thinking what I'm thinking, this is a 7 mana take an extra turn spell in Is It colors. And you do take off the brackets with the cleave. So it reads, take an extra turn after this one. During that turn, damage can't be prevented. Period. Do you see the problem here? Anyways, if you love playing cards like this, there's also a special place in the deep, dark dungeons of my mind for you. But other than that, enjoy this card, I guess. Moving on. Skulking Killer is a 3 black for a vampire assassin creature. When Skulking Killer enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-2 until end of turn if that opponent controls no other creatures. I feel like this card would be actually really powerful in draft, but I don't really see a place for this in Constructed, but very powerful in draft and limited. Moving on to Dread Fugue. I don't even know how to pronounce this, but I think it's Fugue. 1 mana sorcery, has cleave for 2 black. Target player reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it with mana value 2 or less. That player discards that card. Okay, so it doesn't say only non-creature non-land, so you can take 2 mana creatures out of your opponent's hand, which is pretty powerful. But for the cleave cost, it takes off the brackets, so we go target player reveals their hand, you choose a non-land card from it, that player discards that card, so just Thoughtseize. So it's a 3 mana Thoughtseize or a 1 mana take a 2 mana value or less card out of their hand, which I think is pretty strong. Moving on to Vampire's Vengeance. It's a 2 and a red instant. Vampire's Vengeance deals 2 damage to each non-vampire creature. Create a blood token. If you don't know what a blood token is, you should watch my last video. But it's an artifact with a 1 and tap it, discard a card, sacrifice the artifact, and draw a card. What do I think of this card? It's 3 mana, deal 2 to each non-vampire. I feel like this would be slotted, of course, into a vampire deck that would maybe lose to going wide, maybe against like a mono-white deck. Maybe there's 1 or 2 or 3 of these in the sideboard for players playing mono-white. And we already know that Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, is in this set. So maybe mono-white aggro becomes a thing, the go-wide strategy, and Vampire's Vengeance actually becomes a real card. We're getting more vampires in this set, so it's a real possibility, but 2 damage is not 3. There's a lot of things with 3 toughness in the format, which means if you're playing vampires, you might be playing red-black, which means you'll be playing Crippling Fear instead. So this is kind of like a 1 mana cheaper Crippling Fear, and also does 1 less. Moving on to Change of Fortune. Is a 3 and a red for a sorcery. Discard your hand, then draw a card for each card you've discarded this turn. So, each card you've discarded this turn, not the number of cards you just discarded, which means in Historic or other formats like Modern, actually not Modern because Faithless Looting is banned, but you know what you get the point. You can discard some cards, Faithless Looting or so, and then play Change of Fortune and discard your hand and draw a lot of cards. Maybe this is too expensive for 4 mana, but you can draw a lot of cards from this card, and I wouldn't be surprised if this card saw play. Moving on to Chandra, Dressed to Kill, is a 1 and a red. This is probably my favorite card of this video. It's a 3 mana Planeswalker, so I'm getting some Oko vibes here. +1, add red. Adding red mana for a Planeswalker is really good. Reminds me of Chandra, Torture Defiance. Chandra, Dressed to Kill, deals 1 damage to up to 1 target creature or Planeswalker. I did say creature, but I messed up. It's player or Planeswalker. So, not as good with the damage part, but it does add red mana. You can +1 it also to exile the top card of your library. If it's red, you can cast it this turn. So, mono red hype. The -7 is exile the top 5 cards of your library. You may cast red spells from among them this turn. You get an emblem with whenever you cast a red spell. This emblem gets deals X damage to any target, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast that spell. It should just not say any of that and just say win the game. There is another Chandra that does exile the top 7 cards and you can cast them all. It's the 4 mana Chandra from a while ago. But this one's way, way better than that card. This card's very good. It has a little bit of Chandra Torture Defiance vibes. And it has a little bit of other Chandra vibes, but it does add mana just like Chandra Torture Defiance. But the main thing here is it doesn't actually deal with any creatures and doesn't actually make any creatures either. But if you play this in a mono-red deck, you're probably playing burn spells anyway, and you can use those to kill your opponent's stuff, and also create card advantage by exiling the top card and being able to cast it. So, major Chandra Torture Defiance vibes here. Going to Voice of the Blessed here. Our next card is a double white Spirit Cleric. Every time you gain 1 or more life, put 1/1/1 counter on Voice of the Blessed. As long as Voice of the Blessed has 4 or more 1/1 counters, it has Flying and Vigilance. As long as Voice of the Blessed has 10 or more +1/+1 counters, it has Indestructible. Which means this is probably very, very annoying, especially since it is also a cleric. And the clerics have a lot of life gain support right now. And this card could get out of hand really fast, especially since it gains Indestructible. Now, if it has 10 or more counters, you're probably already dead. But that's besides the point. This card is very good, especially in a deck like that. And they also play Luminarch Aspirant in a lot of ways to put 1/1 counters on things. So this could get very scary very fast. Moving on to Concealing Curtains. It's a 1 black wall defender. You can pay 2 and a black to transform Concealing Curtains, activate only as a sorcery. Revealing Eye is the other part of this card. It is an eye horror. It's a 3/4 with menace. When this creature transforms, target opponent reveals their hand, choose a non-land card from it. If you do that, player discards that card, then draws a card. Now, it'd be a lot better if your opponent didn't draw a card, but you do get to look at their hand and discard a card. It is a 3/4 for 1 mana. It's a rare, so, I mean, a 1 mana 0/4 defender is not bad against aggro. You can pay 4 mana, discard one of your opponent's best cards in hand, they draw a card, hopefully they draw land, but then you get to hit them with a 3/4 menace for 1 mana. I mean, I can't really say this card's awful. Has potential. Moving on to Manafort Hellcat. I think this is the #1 best card in the Crimson Vow spoilers so far. It is a 2/2 red. Flying Dragon. It's a 4/4. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, listen closely. Create an XX red dragon illusion creature token with flying and haste, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast that spell. Notably, Elite Spellbinder increases the mana value, or mana cost of the card. It's not mana value, it's mana cost you cast to cast it. The cost you cast to cast it. Anyways, think of Thalia, Garden of Thraben, making your cards more expensive. Think of Raydane making your cards more expensive. That will add to this card's power. It also has haste and flying. Exile the token at the beginning of the next end step. So here's what happens. You have this card on the board. If your opponent doesn't immediately deal with it, you go, Allrun's Epiphany. Interesting. Or the new 7 mana Cleave card that we already talked about. Make a 7/7 flying haste dragon. Attack them for 11. And then you start your next turn. That card gets exiled, but then you have a whole other turn to cast a bunch of cards again, and this doesn't happen once per turn. You can cast a 4-drop into a 3-drop, and then you have a 4/4 and a 3/3 haste flying, along with this. I think your opponent just dies. Let me know what you think of this card in the comments. Moving on to Tauren's Fist of the Angels. It's a 3 mana 2/2 with training. If you don't know what the training mechanic, you can look at my last video, I explained it more, but I'll just read this word for word. Whenever this creature attacks with another creature with greater power, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 green and white human soldier creature token with training. Actually, you know what? I think I actually went over this one already in my last video, but there it is. There it is again. You see it again. Anyways, moving on to Volatile Arsonist. It's a 3/2 red for a mythic 4/4 werewolf. It has menace and haste. So Goldspan Dragon vibes, 5 mana 4/4 haste. Whenever Volatile Arsonist attacks, it deals 1 damage to each of up to 1 target creature, up to 1 target player, and or up to 1 target planeswalker. This card can pack a punch. It also has Daybound. Moving on to Nightbound. It is a 5 mana 5/5 menace haste this time. Whenever it attacks, it deals 2 damage to each up to 1 target creature, up to 1 target player, and up to 1 target planeswalker. Now this card is scary. I don't know if it's better than Goldspan Dragon, but it's scary. Especially in a werewolves deck. Moving on to Wedding Invitation is a 2 mana artifact. Whenever Wedding Invitation enters the battlefield, draw a card. You can tap it and sacrifice Wedding Invitation. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. If it's a vampire, it also gains lifelink until end of turn. So maybe in a vampire's deck, you can slot this in to get some more card advantage and to have something not be blocked. But the real way I see this card is in some kind of Doom Foretold deck, or some kind of deck that wants to bring your artifacts back out of the graveyard. Maybe it's really good in Lurrus decks if you want to use that instead of Soul Guide Lantern, even though Soul Guide Lantern is probably better. But if you're playing a Lurrus deck and you also happen to be playing vampires, then, I mean, this is a pretty cool slot in. It does draw a card when it enters the battlefield, so there's that. And we also have Geist, Light Snare. I think this is another really powerful card in the set. It's a 2 and a blue for an instant. This spell costs 1 less to cast if you control a spirit. It also costs 1 less to cast if you control an enchantment. I mean, the enchantments are just the auras that you put on your creatures to draw additional cards when they deal combat damage. So this slots right into like a mono blue tempo deck. Counter target spell unless the controller pays 3. So this could be definitely a lot of the time be a 1 mana counter spell unless you pay 3. This is better than the pirate counter spell in Historic. This could definitely see play in many formats. Being a 1 mana counter unless you pay 3, there's nothing like that in Standard. There's nothing like that in Historic even. I mean, there's Mystical Dispute, which is arguably better than this card because you don't have to play spirits or enchantments. But in a mono blue tempo deck, this card's very, very strong. All right, or a spirit tempo deck. Maybe even Bant Spirits. Maybe Bant Spirits gets a resurgence from this card. I think it's very strong. Moving on to Dominating Vampires, a 1 and 2 red 3/3 vampire. When Dominating Vampire enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature with mana value less than or equal to the number of vampires you control until end of turn. Untap that creature, it gains haste till end of turn. So this is a threaten effect. I think this is pretty strong, especially if you're going wide type of vampires deck. Your opponent plays a big blocker, say it's like a 4/4. You can definitely go. Say a mono green plays a big 3/3 or 4/4. Just play this, steal your opponent's card, and then attack them for game. That simple. This probably sees a little bit of play in vampires for sure. All right, moving on to that. Moving on to the lands, we have a full art lands here. We have 2 plains, 2 islands, 2 swamps, 2 mountains, and 2 forests, and I'll showcase them for you right now. This here is one of the plains arts. This here is the other plains art with the heavenly rays there. And we also have an island here. Looks like a deserted island with a little sunken ship. I mean, I guess it's not sunken since it's on the shoreline, but shoreline ship, abandoned ship. Next island. Here is a waterfall, 2 waterfalls. This swamp here you're in the middle of a foresty swamp. This swamp is an actual really scary swamp with a bunch of alligators and stuff in it. And there's a little person back there. So peep the little person and peep the little houses back here. We also have the mountain. This is a windy mountain. And then moving on to this mountain. It's a less windy mountain with a bunch of birds, crows. And we have the forest, which is this huge tree. And then moving on to this forest, which is a bunch of roots. Well, anyways, that is all for all the cards. You saw all 18 cards in the new full art lands. Let me know how you like those in the comments. Make sure to give the video a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more spoiler content like this, or you'd like to see deck techs like the one on the screen right now. Have a good rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.